5, time. 15.
Hello, good evening. My name is Barny Revill. Thank you for the introduction. Various different ways of remembering my name. Usually it's something to do with a cartoon. Barny Rubble is an obvious one. For the Americans out there, I know there's a few. Barney the Purple Dinosaur. For the older generation, Barney the Bear. But my favourite, Barney from The Simpsons. Always propping up the bar there. So I'm a television director, and I generally make sort of exploration, adventure, wildlife films, things out in the wild. So the last thing I just did was a series for ITV, Life at the Extreme, with Davina McCall. And I'm currently at the BBC making Earth from Space. Ooh, just sounds fantastic, and hopefully will be, but it'll be a little while before it's on your screens. But so what's all this got to do with dogs? Well, I suppose a little bit about me and my experience with dogs. I grew up with Lucky and Bibi. Lucky was a mad red setter, generally found at the local police station where she'd run off and escaped from our house and was picked up by someone and delivered there. But throughout most of my adult life, if you like, I've wanted to have a dog to replicate this experience, but always thought, well, I'm not sure I can, I'm away a lot and I live in a city and, it's not fair on the dog. But the last year, me and my wife and our son went to Argentina, where my wife is from, or at least her family's from, and so we spent a year working on a farm out there. And so we were like, well, this is our chance. We might be able to get a dog, but we were a little unsure because we're on the farm and I was out riding a horse, chasing cows. God only knows who let me do that. But that was my daily job. But the farm manager brought us in just a couple of weeks after we arrived. And he said, I've got something for your son, a birthday present, and produced Zazu. So this is our gorgeous, gorgeous dog. And basically, we had a fantastic year living with her, and we ended up actually not just with one, but we picked up Pitufo, which was a stray here, and then we had a cat and horses, a veritable menagerie. It was fantastic. But obviously, after the year, we came back to the UK, and unfortunately, because they lived such a gorgeous life with just fields everywhere, we ended up leaving them with my brother-in-law out there and on the farm. But obviously, we're missing having a dog. But we decided, no, we can't have a dog. I live in Bristol. We're at work. We can't do it. But I came back from work. It was a year and one day after we got Zazu, and having made some very strong conversations about not getting a dog, I came back from work and arrived to this. Meet Honey. This is Honey. She's currently about 9 weeks old, I think. So this is only a couple of days, week or so ago. She's gorgeous, and I've never really been into small dogs, but she's perfect for our lives at the moment. And here's a little demonstration. So, ferocious animal, absolute terror. And that's more what I'm used to in my work, I suppose. These extreme programs around the world. I've made a series called River Monsters, where we got out all kinds of scary-looking creatures out of the rivers, which has been very successful over in America. Went up Everest. So used to living in sort of the weird and wild places of the world. This was quite harrowing being up there. That's Advanced Base Camp on the north side, so it's about 6,400 meters, which is not much fun for 10 weeks. You come back, I thought I was going to be coming back all fit and sort of, I'd been training at altitude. I think my wife described me as looking like I'd walked off a war zone because I was haggard and all my muscles had wasted away because you don't digest any food. I mean, I wouldn't recommend it. It's sort of, but I've also done things like I went on a submarine with the Royal Navy underneath the North Pole. We were basically with some scientists tracking across, basically going right from Scotland over to the Alaskan side of the Arctic. And the purpose was, our purpose was to be looking at the thickness of the ice. But again, really horrible place to be. I mean, you think, oh, submarine's glamorous and everything, and it looks like it here. But actually, when it's under the ocean, it's like an office. There's no sense of movement. There's no windows. It's all strip lights. It hums, and you're walking like this everywhere. Sorry, excuse me, sorry. And all the sailors, it takes, I think it's nearly 100 of them to sail that tin can. They share beds, so they're 12 hours on, 12 hours off. So we didn't have a bed, so the place where they put us was they basically took out 2 torpedoes and we slept on the torpedo racks. So a very surreal experience. But so as you can imagine, I was a little surprised when I was asked to make a program about dogs. It was Alice Keane-Soper and Peter Collins from Oxford Scientific Films who asked me, and I was like, dogs? Well, you mean hunting dogs, wild dogs, maybe wolves? And they were like, no, domestic dogs, you know, all shot in the UK. And I was like, okay, well, maybe. And then I sort of thought about it, and we talked about it, and basically they said things have changed in the study of dogs, and certainly they've also consequently changed in the world of TV. At that time, so this is back in 2012, basically dog programs were, Cesar Millan. They were the how to train your dog, how to look after it, maybe a Battersea Dog Home type show. But there was nothing that was sort of glossy and celebrated or really enjoyed what they can offer to us. And I think this was, what they said to me was that the scientific community has changed as well. And there's some incredible research coming out from people like John and his colleagues. And essentially, I think traditionally people looked at domestic dogs and thought, well, what can we learn from them? We need to go into the wilderness to study the behavior of wild animals if we want to learn anything that's truly meaningful. But then they gradually realized that actually what you had in front of you was an animal, but you could train it, you could teach it. It enjoyed having experiments, Experiments on animals, traditionally not a very nice thing, but these guys, they're like, yeah, you're going to give me treats and I get to do things. And so suddenly they had a subject that they could learn a lot about. And basically what it meant was that, they were making these incredible discoveries. And so what Oxford Scientific Films were saying to me was, we need to make a documentary about this, but we want you to bring your talents, your experience of what you've done in the wildlife world and bring it to dogs. So this is me with a couple of gorgeous Great Danes. And so what we did, we basically put everything into it. I think traditionally you would wave a little camera around and that would be good enough. But we used commercial techniques. We used feature film techniques. We shot in slow motion. If we wanted to film puppies, we had steady cams running around and basically gave a very glossy look. And it really paid dividends. We wanted to get the variety of dogs, all the different types. So we went to a dog show and we were thinking, well, how can we do this? And instead of, dog shows are not particularly pretty places to film, but we brought these translights in. So we had 4 of them, and they're all sort of perfect sunsets, beaches, and essentially if you're focused on the dog and the background is slightly out of focus, you totally get away with it. But it meant that we could wheel in all kinds of different breeds, shapes and sizes, and film them. And another little tip, basically people always say top tips for filming or taking a photo, put them on a little plinth like this. Doesn't need to be that high, but if you want them, we wanted them without their collars, excuse me. And if you put them on a little plinth, they will just take a little moment to look around before they jump off, because often the owner would walk away and the dog would then follow. But if they're actually on a little plinth and they kind of go, oh, okay, what? And that was often all we needed with a slow motion camera like this to get that perfect moment. My other top tool, which I've taken pretty much on every shoot ever since, I did a series about babies after this one, and went with me on every shoot. Absolutely super high-tech, need it on everything I do. Couple of these are just fantastic. Basically, I'm not sure if they've all gone to sleep, but you give it a couple of squeaks, vary it up, and suddenly it's the glances, it's the looks, it's those moments, it's those things that you're capturing, which obviously people love. So probably, if I go like this is a little clip from it.
Dogs. Man's best friend. But do we really know our faithful companions? How they see their world? What they really think of us? In this film, we'll meet dogs that seem to have a sixth sense.
I knew I'd got breast cancer because Max had told me.
Undying loyalty.
That dog saved my life, and for that he won the Victoria Cross.
Incredible intuition.
I've not taught her to do it, she's just done it.
We'll follow the life of a growing puppy. Any dog, and in fact many dogs will play this role. But by watching it develop, we'll reveal the hidden abilities in all dogs. In the last few years, scientists have delved deeper than ever before into the canine mind and body, and the results are extraordinary. The way you see dogs will never be the same again.
So, as you can see, we did what I think I'm very proud of it. We did a fantastic job of really capturing them in ways you hadn't seen before, and really brought a level of quality to it and some beauty, which I don't think had really been done that often. But what I think was most crucial to it was the stories, was the personal relationships. Because for me, and I'm sure for most of you, what makes dogs truly special is the way they make us feel, is the way that they can relate to us, the way we relate to them. We don't know how much they feel on their side of things, but certainly they make us feel good, and we love it. And I don't think I'd realised how useful that would be. Even in the filming, we obviously wanted to film various, heartfelt interviews about, the dog who sniffed some cancer in this lady or saved their lives or whatever. And I thought, aesthetically, it'll be lovely to film them with their dog, and and they can have something to look at. But it made a huge difference. Basically, you're sitting someone down and you're wanting to film them, and it's not the most comfortable thing, having a big camera, lights, booms and everything stuck in your face, and then go, gosh, tell me a really heartfelt, emotional story, but do it quickly and nicely. But if they had a dog to stroke, it made all the difference. I'm sure you all know, if you sit there and put your hand through their fur and sniff their head, and just your whole body just takes a moment. And it was fantastic, and it just meant the performances we got out of people were stunning. And I think that was, in many ways, a huge factor in its success. It was something I really wanted to do, was capture what dogs mean to us, and that whole relationship and how important they are. And I think we did. And obviously, off the back of that, ITV were very happy. This was a series for ITV. There'd just been a follow-up series to it fairly recently, which you may well have seen. The BBC called us up and said, why didn't you do that for ITV? Why didn't you do it for us? And they said, well, apparently we offered it to the BBC, but they didn't want it because they didn't think they wanted domestic dogs back then. Channel 4 have done Dogs, Their Secret Lives about dog abandonment, and Channel 5 have done Secret Life of Puppies. There's a whole wealth of them. I myself have done quite well out of it. I've done, as mentioned, a Dulux commercial. What are we on next? Yes, the Dulux commercial. Sorry about the quality of the photo. That was just taken on my phone on the back of a camera. And then most recently, as mentioned, Me and My Dog. So this, I think you can see in the middle there, is Chris Packham. And basically, yes, it's a competition format. It's a lovely series for the BBC Two, starting, I think it's April the 9th, 8 p.m. on Wednesdays. And it's basically people and their dogs competing against each other, but in a very lovely way. We learn about dogs, we learn about why they're so special, and what they're doing is things like stand-up paddleboarding with the dogs on the board, they're cycling with the dogs attached, they're running, they're doing orienteering, they're doing intelligence, parkour, and so all these kind of adventurous things together. But there's a science yurt to learn more about what's actually going on, why the dogs are reacting. But I think what lifts it for me, and hopefully for the audience as well, from just another series, another competition format, is the dogs, because the emotions that these contestants went on, the highs and lows, were fantastic. And even Chris, he would be the first person to stand up and say he's not the most emotionally sort of outgoing of people. I think he said he's sort of on the autistic spectrum. But when it comes to dogs, things totally change. And we had him laughing, we had him crying, and it's things like, he adored working on it, and it's something that, I think went went down. So I'm sure and hope you will really like it. Because what I think it all comes back down to is that dogs play a huge part in our lives. We can lean on them in a way that we can't. And I think especially in today's world, dare I say it, we don't connect with the outside world anymore. We're not out, whereas a dog will drag you out for a walk. Even if it's the park, it's sunshine, it's, well, more grey clouds, it's a bit of green space. And also it gets you away from these screens. I'm surrounded by them at the moment. And, I don't feel connect like we used to, because we've always got our head in a screen, we're always looking at something. We don't talk to people unless it's, we don't compliment them other than a like. But dogs open up the world to you. They force you out of that. My wife was just saying the other day, she was walking down the street with little Honey, and she had 9 complete strangers surrounding her, all wanting to know about this little puppy. And it's lovely. Our neighbours, who we get on really well with, came round to our house for the first time since we've moved in, I think. But they actually came into the house because they wanted to meet the puppy. And you just start piecing these, and it all starts coming together. They are in many ways the glue, I think, of what happens. And so I'm very happy that I've got dogs in my life, both personally and also professionally, and I hope it continues. The old adage of not working with children or animals, obviously having done the babies series and the dog series, I then put them all together and babies and kids. But it works wonderfully. I don't think there's anything wrong. People say, "Oh, you shouldn't do it. It's crazy. You're mad." But I love it, and I think it's so rewarding. I think if you can create the right environment, you get the most incredible performances, and it touches people in a way that not many other documentaries or programs do. I will leave you with this. Thank you very much.